See, all that hating. All that hate don't get you nowhere. Haters always gonna get theirs, man. They always gonna get theirs. News has broken. We didn't even know. Shout out to Livewire Sports. Shout out to the homie over there, man. Go sub up to Livewire Sports. Sheryl Swoopes. Y'all remember when Sheryl Swoopes was doing that disrespectful bias reporting on Caitlin Clark during the Dallas Wings game when she was a part of the telecast? They ended up firing her. Y'all remember all the hate and jealousy that Sheryl Swoopes and Lexie Brown was kicking over there on Gil's Arena during Caitlin Clark's rookie year and even before her rookie season even started? Y'all remember all of that? They have both been fired from under.
The WNBA was thrown into absolute chaos the moment the stunning announcement dropped. Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes had been fired on the same day, at the same hour, for the same explosive reason. And the league didn't even try to soften it. No carefully phrased statement, no gentle explanation. Just one brutal headline that detonated across every platform. Disciplinary action following misconduct toward Caitlin Clark. Within minutes, social media melted. Fans screamed in disbelief. Analysts scrambled to understand what went down behind the scenes. But the shock wasn't just the firing, it was who got fired. Sheryl Swoopes wasn't just a commentator, she was a legend. Lexie Brown wasn't just a player. She was a vocal face of a growing anti-Caitlin faction. And now, both were suddenly erased from their positions overnight, gone without warning, gone without ceremony. Gone with an intensity that made everyone ask the same breathless question: what did they do? Cameras zoomed in on team facilities. Reporters sprinted for statements. Even players who normally stayed silent were texting cryptic reactions. This is wild. They pushed too far. The league isn't playing anymore. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark remained silent, fueling even more speculation. Did she know? Did she complain? Did someone finally decide the hate had crossed a line? Because whatever happened, whatever triggered the firings, everyone could feel it in the air. Something massive had snapped inside.
Rampart, dog.
Yeah, I think Lexie got let go. Ooh, nice. You been to that? No, the fuck I didn't.
Now look at these
found
numbers
out,
up, chat. Let's work
I
quick.
think Lexie told. Lexie did I did a show with her, one of her other co-hosts.
Oh,
She
Mariah?
came here and did Joy Taylor, and then she found out that Sheryl got let go.
Oh, damn, I didn't even know that.
Huh?
I didn't even know that. But I just mind my business, man.
I hit Sheryl and said it was true.
the WNBA's walls. And the truth behind it was about to flip the entire league upside down. Long before the league dropped its most shocking double firing in years, the tension between Lexie Brown, Sheryl Swoopes, and Caitlin Clark had been simmering like a slow-burning fuse visible to the public in flashes, but far more volatile behind the scenes than anyone realized. It didn't start with one comment, one interview, or one heated moment. It began the instant Caitlin's arrival, reshaped the entire WNBA ecosystem. Sold-out arenas, ratings the league had never dreamed of, sponsors flooding in, media coverage doubling overnight, and with every spotlight that landed on Caitlin, the pressure shifted inside locker rooms, studios, and front offices. Some players embraced the change. Others resisted it. Lexie Brown fell firmly into the second category, not because she lacked talent, but because she had spent years grinding through a league that often undervalued its own stars. And suddenly, a rookie showed up and became the face of everything. Lexie felt the imbalance instantly. She felt erased by the mania. She felt overlooked by the praise. And those emotions, frustration, insecurity, resentment, began mutating into something sharper. Sheryl Swoopes had a different history. She was a pioneer, a foundational figure, someone who built the league when everything was stacked against women's basketball.
Sheryl Swoopes she's lighting herself on fire, Steve. They had to pull her off a game because she can't be trusted to call Caitlin Clark games correctly or fairly. They basically pulled her off the game for racism. You're too much of a bigot to call Caitlin Clark games. We're pulling you off the game.
Voice carried weight, heavy, respected, feared. But as Caitlin Clark's rise became the center of every conversation, Sheryl's commentary grew more blunt, more skeptical, more pointed. She insisted she was defending realism, defending the veterans, defending the truth about the league. But behind those explanations was something deeper, a fear that history was being rewritten in real time, that a rookie's stardom threatened to overshadow decades of sacrifice. Sheryl didn't hate Caitlin. She hated the system that was suddenly elevating new faces faster than it honored the old ones. But the bitterness seeped into her tone, her interviews, her podcasts, her panels. The public noticed, executives noticed, and most importantly, the players noticed. Caitlin herself felt the frost long before anyone said her name out loud. She felt the silence when she walked into rooms. She felt the tension in post-game scrums. She felt the pointed commentary disguised as analysis. She never complained. She never clapped back. She swallowed every uncomfortable moment because she wasn't just fighting for her career. She was fighting for a league that desperately needed momentum. But the emotional toll was heavy. Every time she opened social media, her name was dragged into narratives she didn't control. Every time she spoke, critics twisted her words into headlines. Every time she stayed silent, someone accused her of entitlement. And through it all, she watched players she admired, voices she grew up respecting, slowly turn into her most public skeptics. The real backstory, though, wasn't what the cameras caught. It was what the microphones didn't. Months before the firings, the league had launched a private investigation into a series of complaints filed internally, anonymous, detailed, and deeply concerning. They weren't just about comments made on air. They were about targeted hostility in closed-door meetings, undisclosed social media burner activity, leaked team-level information, interference with PR briefings. One complaint described a hostile culture intentionally cultivated against a rookie. Another claimed certain players were actively coordinating online narratives to undermine Caitlin's public perception. And as the center said, investigation expanded.
She averaged 31.6, 7.4 rebounds, 9 assists, right? Did anyone expect her to do that in WNBA? No, right? So she didn't do that.
No.
Now, if we say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But
That's crazy. Is that
Those
dominant?
are hell of a number.
Those are hell of a numbers.
rookie.
But to me, that's not
Period.
dominating.
Yeah, it's only not dominating because she's a rookie.
Now,
If
No.
because if she's putting up numbers like Asia right now, would she be dominating?
yes.
So it's a
Evidence began pointing in one direction toward individuals with influence, reach, and motive. Lexie's involvement surfaced first. Messages from private group chats questioning league leadership for favoring the Golden Girl. Screenshots of her encouraging others to push back publicly. Allegations that she had spoken aggressively about Caitlin during team activities, creating an environment younger players felt unsafe, challenging. But the investigation didn't stop there. A more disturbing discovery emerged. Someone with media access had repeatedly leaked partial, distorted narratives to online platforms that amplified anti-Caitlin sentiment. Those leaks were traced back to a source close to Sheryl Swoopes. It wasn't proof of malice, but it was proof of involvement, enough to raise alarms in the league office, enough to force uncomfortable questions, enough to trigger a second wave of internal reviews. Meanwhile, Team USA tensions magnified everything. Caitlin's rising global profile pushed her into rooms she didn't ask to enter. Her name was used in political arguments she didn't start. Veterans felt pressure to adapt. Broadcasters felt pressure to comment more boldly. The public began choosing sides, and Lexie and Sheryl, already at the center of the criticism storm, grew even more outspoken, not realizing eyes were quietly tracking every word, every pattern, every connection. The emotional divide they contributed to was no longer harmless commentary. It was damaging the league's chemistry, public trust, and player relationships. Then came the incident the league has still not released publicly, a confrontation in a private setting where a line was crossed. Words were exchanged, voices raised, tensions snapped, and someone present filed a formal statement describing unprofessional hostility directed at Caitlin Clark in a manner inconsistent with league guidelines. That was the moment everything shifted from concern to liability. Behind the scenes, league executives debated for weeks. Protect the veterans? Risk favoritism accusations? Protect Caitlin? Risk backlash from traditionalists? Every option created conflict. Every path created headlines. But when new evidence emerged, evidence that connected private commentary to public hostility, that tied internal leaks to external narratives, that showed a coordinated pattern rather than isolated incidents, the league decided silence was no longer an option. Lexie Brown, Sheryl Swoopes, two very different careers, two very different motives, one shared consequence, termination. And yet the real shock wasn't the ending. It was the hidden reason behind it. Because the league didn't just fire them for the past. They fired them to prevent a future scandal far worse than the public knew. A scandal that was about to unravel fast and pull Caitlin straight into the center of it. The moment Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes were removed from their positions, the league thought the storm would calm, that two terminations would silence the noise, satisfy the public, protect Caitlin Clark, and bury whatever had been building beneath the surface. But the firings didn't end the conflict. They ignited it. Within minutes, fans, analysts, insiders, and even current players split into two furious factions. One side insisted justice had finally arrived, that the hostility aimed at Caitlin had gone too far for too long. The other side accused the league of silencing criticism, punishing strong voices, and bowing to the Caitlin Clark economy. But neither side knew the truth. Neither side realized the firings were just the first domino in a chain reaction that had been quietly assembling behind the scenes for months. Waiting for the moment everything would collapse at once, the conflict erupted inside the league office before it erupted online. Executives screamed at each other behind closed doors, some defending the decision as necessary for player safety, others warning it would be seen as favoritism, others terrified of what might leak next. Because the investigation had uncovered something far more dangerous than trash talk, burner accounts, or critiques on social media. The real scandal, the one the league hadn't dared to reveal yet, was a series of encrypted communications suggesting a coordinated effort to influence public opinion, disrupt internal trust, and undermine the league's chosen marketing direction. And Lexie and Sheryl were only two pieces of a much larger puzzle. But after weeks of searching, tracing, interviewing, and cross-referencing, the league was horrified to realize that the third and most dangerous piece was someone no one expected. Inside locker rooms across the WNBA, players reacted with shock, anger, and fear. Some refused to believe Sheryl, a pioneer, could ever cross such a line. Others pointed fingers at Lexie, accusing her of fueling anti-Caitlin culture for months. Coaches whispered in hallways. PR teams issued emergency guidelines. Team USA representatives contacted the league for clarification. Sponsorship teams panicked about protecting Caitlin from the fallout. And all the while, Caitlin sat silently in the eye of the hurricane, feeling the world spin uncontrollably around her. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't filed complaints. She hadn't wanted anyone fired. She didn't even know the investigation existed until it was too late. And now, she felt the weight of guilt crushing her chest, as if her success had become a weapon tearing down the very people she once admired. The real conflict began when Caitlin decided to confront the situation directly. Against the advice of her team, her agent, and league officials, Caitlin requested a private meeting with the board. She refused to be protected. She refused to be silent. She refused to let the firings define her. When she entered the boardroom, eyes swollen from lack of sleep, voice trembling but determined, executives were stunned into silence. "I want the truth," she said. "All of it. Every detail. Every document. Every message. I won't let this league use my name to punish people without telling me why." But the truth wasn't simple. The truth was a labyrinth of politics, fear, ego, and miscalculation. The board hesitated. Some members exchanged nervous glances. Others looked away completely. They didn't want to tell Caitlin everything. They didn't want to expose the darker layers, the ones involving people she trusted. People tied to her past. People who had benefited from her meteoric rise. But Caitlin didn't back down. Her voice cracked with emotion. "You say you want transparency, so prove it." Finally, the chairwoman slid a file across the table. A thick, heavy, confidential file. "Before you open this," she warned, "understand this isn't about you. You're a target. A symbol. People used your name because it was powerful, not because you invited this." Caitlin opened the file with shaking hands. Inside were transcripts, screenshots, and reports detailing the months-long investigation. She saw Lexie's messages, Sheryl's leaked evaluations, anonymous accounts, internal warnings, and evidence of coordinated narratives meant to divide players into pro-Caitlin and anti-Caitlin factions. But then Caitlin reached a page labeled Phase 2, Leadership Destabilization. Her heart thudded painfully. The document referenced a third individual, unknown, unnamed, unpunished, someone who had directed the strategy, someone who had influenced public narratives behind the scenes, someone with access, authority, and motive. Caitlin's eyes widened. "You're saying there's someone else involved?" she whispered. The chairwoman nodded gravely. "Someone we haven't fired yet." Before Caitlin could respond, the door swung open, slamming against the wall so hard the board members flinched. Aja Wilson stood in the doorway, her expression furious and heartbroken. She was shaking, whether from rage, betrayal, or a mix of both. No one could tell. She glared at the board, then locked eyes with Caitlin. "You didn't think I'd find out?" she demanded. Caitlin rose to her feet, startled. "Aja, what are you talking about?" Aja stepped forward, voice cracking under the weight of a secret she had carried since the investigation began. They didn't fire Sheryl and Lexie because of some comments. They fired them because they were being directed by someone even bigger, someone with power, someone who wanted you isolated. Caitlin's stomach dropped. "Who?" Aja slammed a folder onto the table, one she had received from a whistleblower earlier that morning. Inside was the name the league tried to hide. A name both women recognized instantly. A name tied to media influence, WNBA visibility, and decades of insider connections. A name no one ever expected to be associated with such manipulation. A name Caitlin once trusted. The room went silent. Board members looked shattered. Caitlin's knees nearly buckled. Aja whispered the name out loud, quiet, broken, furious. It was her. Caitlin felt the world collapse around her. And that was only the first twist. Because the second twist hit seconds later, when a league official burst into the room, breathless and terrified. "Everything's been leaked. All files. All names. All messages. The public knows everything, including the third conspirator." Phones buzzed. Board members panicked. Cameras outside the building erupted. And players across the league, stunned, betrayed, furious, now knew exactly who had been pulling the strings. Caitlin's heart pounded so violently she thought she might faint. Because she didn't just recognize the name, she knew the voice. She knew the face. She knew the history. The person behind the smear campaign wasn't an enemy. It was someone she once called a mentor. The name echoed inside the boardroom like a detonation building, expanding, shaking the walls with the weight of betrayal so deep that even the executives struggled to breathe under it. Caitlin Clark's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mind couldn't process it, her heart wouldn't accept it, and her body felt like it had been slammed backward by a force she never saw coming. The mentor she once trusted. The voice she admired. The woman she believed had her back during college transitions, media pressure, and early professional expectations. The name printed in that folder wasn't an enemy at all. It was someone who had shaped her journey, someone she defended endlessly, someone she believed understood her. And that was the part that shattered her. Aja stood across from her, chest rising and falling in furious waves, eyes burning with a pain Caitlin understood instantly, the pain of being manipulated without knowing it. But there was something else hidden in Aja's stare, something that terrified Caitlin more than anything. A question, a suspicion, a fear. Did Caitlin know? Caitlin shook her head desperately, tears filling her eyes. Aja, I didn't. But Aja wasn't ready to hear it. She wasn't angry at Caitlin, she was angry at the system, the lies, the manipulation, but the emotional shock had left her raw, shaking, vulnerable to the ugliest thoughts. You trusted her, Aja said quietly. You defended her. And the whole time, she was using you as a shield. The boardroom door slammed open again, and a swarm of staff burst inside, panic all over their faces. Lock down the floor, one shouted. Reporters are in the stairwell. Another slammed a tablet on the table. The files weren't just leaked. They're trending worldwide. Every message, every plot, every name. It's all out. Caitlin felt sick. Her vision blurred. Not just because her mentor was exposed, but because now the entire world was watching her reaction. Every camera outside the building was waiting for one thing: her pain, her heartbreak, her anger, and the league knew it. Aja grabbed her arm, steadying her. Breathe, she whispered with a kind of gentleness that cracked Caitlin completely. They weren't enemies anymore. They weren't rivals. They were survivors of the same betrayal. Before Caitlin could respond, an executive pointed at the screen. Look. The leaked messages were plastered across social media, thousands of screenshots, millions of shares, and one thread in particular was blowing up faster than the rest. A series of private messages between Caitlin's mentor and Sheryl Swoopes, discussing controlling the narrative, steering fan perception, and redirecting blame. But what froze Caitlin's blood were the final messages. Cece is too soft-spoken to challenge power. She'll stay silent if things get ugly. And, if Aja fights back, she becomes the villain. If Cece stays quiet, she becomes the token. Either way, we control the story. Caitlin felt her entire body tremble. Silence had been her survival tool. Silence had been her protection. Silence had been her attempt to avoid disrespecting veterans or entering conflict she didn't understand. But now she realized her silence wasn't protecting anyone. It was being used against her, used against Aja, used to fuel a narrative she never agreed to be part of. Aja slammed her hand on the table with such force that everyone jumped. She used both of us, she growled. She turned us into weapons. Caitlin's tears slipped down her cheeks, but her expression hardened with something Aja had never seen in her before. Fire. No, Caitlin whispered. She turned us into targets. The board tried to intervene. We're handling this, the chairwoman insisted. We will remove her from every position and issue a statement. Aja cut her off sharply. A statement won't fix what she did. Caitlin wiped her face with the back of her hand. A statement won't stop people from thinking I was involved. And then another truth hit her, one that made her sink into the chair as if gravity doubled around her. Her mentor was still in the building. The door to the boardroom suddenly clicked from the outside. Locked. Everyone turned. A piercing alarm sounded through the facility. Security radios crackled with static, then a voice came through. We have a situation. She's refusing to leave. Aja's eyes widened. She's here? The chairwoman staggered backward. She can't be, she was escorted out. Another staffer burst into the room, breathless. She bypassed security. She's trying to reach Caitlin. Caitlin's pulse surged painfully. Why? The staffer swallowed hard. She says she needs to explain something about the leaks, about why she did what she did. Aja grabbed Caitlin's hand tightly. You're not talking to her alone. Caitlin nodded, still shaking. I'm not talking to her at all. But before they could move, the overhead lights flickered, the intercom crackled, and her mentor's voice filled the entire building. Calm, cold, unapologetic. Caitlin, Aja, stop hiding. You need to hear the full truth. I wasn't working against you. I was working for you. And if you walk away now, you'll destroy everything I've been protecting. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the voice added something even more chilling. The real enemy isn't me. It's the person sitting in that room. Aja and Caitlin slowly turned toward the board. Executives shifted uncomfortably. And in that silent, terrifying moment, one realization hit them both harder than anything so far. This wasn't a scandal. This was a war. And they had no idea who the real villain was yet. The intercom went silent, leaving a chilling echo hanging in the boardroom, as Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson stood frozen, caught between the mentor who manipulated them and a board of executives who suddenly looked far too nervous, far too guilty, far too prepared for questions they never wanted to answer. The air felt electric, heavy, as if the walls themselves were waiting for the explosion that was coming. Aja's grip on Caitlin's arm tightened protectively. Executives exchanged panicked glances, and Caitlin's heartbeat thudded violently in her chest, each beat louder than the last. Her mentor's words weren't a threat, they were a warning, a terrifying one. The real enemy isn't me, it's the person sitting in that room. But which person? Which executive? Which leader? Which voice had been pulling the strings while pretending to clean up the mess? A booming crash suddenly erupted from outside the boardroom, furniture overturning, footsteps pounding, staff shouting in terror. The door handle jerked violently as someone tried to break in. Security sprinted past the hallway, yelling into radios. Lights flickered overhead. The building was unraveling. Aja moved instinctively in front of Caitlin, ready for anything, fiercely protective in a way neither of them expected months ago. Stay behind me, she warned. Caitlin didn't argue. She couldn't. Her mind was spinning, her heart breaking as she realized someone had manipulated her loyalty, her silence, her innocence, all to fuel a war she never wanted to be part of. Then the boardroom's emergency screen flickered on by itself. Static. Then glitching. Then a live security feed. The camera showed the mentor storming down the hallway, eyes blazing with desperation, determination, and something almost frighteningly sincere. She shoved past barriers, ignored guards, slammed her hands against locked doors. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was coming for them. And she was angry, not the defensive anger of someone caught, but the furious conviction of someone who believed she was saving the players from something worse. Aja stared at the screen, disbelief washing over her. She looks terrified. Caitlin's voice cracked. Why? The chairwoman stepped forward, panicked. Cut the feed. But before she could, another figure entered the hallway behind the mentor, someone tall, composed, wearing a dark badge only the highest-ranking officials possessed. Aja looked closer. Caitlin's eyes widened. The boardroom went silent, because the second figure was another powerful name they recognized instantly, someone who had been strangely quiet, someone who had insisted on the firings, someone who had been guiding the league's Caitlin Clark marketing direction from day one. Someone with far more authority than the mentor. The WNBA's head of strategy. He grabbed the mentor by the arm. She pulled away sharply. He stepped closer, threatening, forceful, furious. And then, the audio feed crackled on. You were supposed to follow the plan, he growled. I was trying to protect them, she screamed back. You exposed us. You used them. We used everyone. Caitlin's breath hitched painfully. Aja's jaw clenched. The board members in the room turned ghost white. The players knew. This wasn't about favoritism. This wasn't about commentary. This wasn't about criticism. This was an engineered empire, built on manipulation, exploitation, and narrative control. The mentor tried again to break free. Caitlyn and Aja deserve to know the truth. The fans deserve the truth. They're not your puppets. The strategist slammed her against the wall. Caitlyn gasped. Aja stepped closer to the screen in horror. You think they'll believe you? He hissed. You were the perfect scapegoat. And now Swoopes and Lexie are gone, so if this leaks, you take the fall. Not us. She choked out. Let me go. Not until you shut up. The boardroom exploded into chaos. Executives lunged toward the emergency panels. Staffers yelled for security. Aja shouted, "Help her!" While Caitlyn stood frozen, tears spilling, the betrayal burning her from the inside out. And then, the strategist noticed the camera. He stared directly into it. His expression changed instantly from rage to a slow, chilling smile. He looked straight at Caitlin Clark through the feed and mouthed, "You weren't supposed to see this." The feed cut to black. Every light in the building shut off. The boardroom door's lock clicked. Something, or someone, manually sealed them inside. Caitlin's voice trembled. "Aja, we're trapped." Aja grabbed her hand, steady, fierce. "We're not going down like this." Footsteps echoed outside. Multiple footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone stopped right outside the door. A keycard beeped. The lock disengaged. Caitlin's heart pounded violently. Aja braced herself. The door creaked open, revealing a silhouette neither of them expected. The figure stepped inside, breathing hard, eyes wild with urgency. "Both of you now?" they whispered. "If you want the truth, the real truth, you have 60 seconds to escape with me." Aja stared. Caitlyn blinked through tears. "Why are you here?" Caitlyn whispered. The silhouette stepped closer. "Because," they said darkly, "I was never supposed to choose a side. But after what I just saw, I'm choosing yours." The lights flickered back on, and everything was about to explode. The boardroom shook as alarms blared through the corridors, and the silhouette motioned frantically for Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson to move. The world outside those walls was already burning, files leaked, names exposed, networks broadcasting chaos. But the truth inside the building was even more volatile, even more dangerous, even more explosive than anything the public was screaming about online. As they sprinted through the dim hallway, hearts pounding like war drums, breath ragged and heavy, Caitlin felt her fear transform into something sharper, something stronger, something she had never allowed herself to feel in this league until now. Resolve. She wasn't running from the truth anymore, she was running toward it. Aja stayed at her side, the two of them moving like a single force once divided by narratives that were never theirs. Now bound together by betrayal that demanded justice. The silhouette, still anonymous, guided them down a hidden staircase, whispering urgently. "What you saw was just the surface. They've been using players for years, controlling stories, creating conflicts, manufacturing rivalries. And now that everything's exposed, they're going to rewrite the narrative unless someone stops them." Caitlin's voice shook as she asked, "Stop them how?" The silhouette opened a heavy door leading into a forgotten media archive room. "By telling the truth yourselves, publicly, together. None of their strategies matter if the players unite. And that's where you come in. Because this fight won't be won behind closed doors. It won't be won by executives rewriting statements or networks polishing headlines. It will be won by fans demanding transparency, by players refusing silence, by voices refusing to accept manipulation as part of women's sports. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and Aja and Caitlin can't walk it alone. They need support. They need witnesses. They need amplification. So stand up, speak out. Don't let this moment fade into rumor. Share the truth. Push the league to protect its players, not its power structures. Because the next chapter is coming fast. And Caitlin and Aja aren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They're fighting for all of us.